Casting with Ceri Jones.
Hi guys, and welcome to this week's podcast. A special one it is too, because it was 4 years ago I started the podcast. And for this episode I decided to put some of your favourites. I can't believe that it's been 4 years, over 180 episodes and well over 100 guests, topping 16,000 listeners a month across all platforms. It's been quite a journey. The idea started at the very start of lockdown, while sitting in my shed. I didn't think it would turn out to be such a success. Goes to show that the next best thing to fishing is talking about it. And after 18 months, I realised, even though I had the numbers, I had to make it pay, as each episode was taking more and more of my time. For it takes 2 days to prepare and record and edit each episode, plus the equipment I spent on. So it was then I started my Patreon page. So a huge thank you to my patrons, for without you, I couldn't keep it going. During this journey, not only was it good to catch up with anglers I hadn't seen for a while, I have made new friends along the way. Having been in the industry for over 30 years working for a trout fisherman, it was a natural progression and to move with the times in starting the podcast. There were a number of years after fishing since the age of 12, I lost the love you can say for fly fishing. It was then my passion for Corrib ferox took over, and something I still have, big time. In fact, I'm heading over again for the whole month of August. Nowadays, I again have my love for fly fishing, and the podcast brings together like-minded people who share this love for the wonderful sport. More recently, it was also great for me as the editor of the Flyfishing journal, something which I really enjoyed. From the start, I wanted the podcast to be different. Not a how-to technical chat like you see on YouTube, but more about stories and giving the feel of sitting at the bar after a day's fishing, telling stories over the creamy rim of a pint glass. After saying that, I wanted listeners to not only enjoy the chats, but to go away with something they can try. Picking a selection of clips was a tough one, but I decided to choose the episodes which have had most messages, feedback and most listened to, plus a couple of my favourites. I'd love to put all 185, but it would take weeks to listen to. Those who haven't yet joined as a patron, please do, as there's over 200 hours of chat to catch up on. As I have said, I have met new friends along the way, and one person I'm going to meet up next week and fish together is Marisha Kirchner. I'm travelling to the Faroe Islands to experience what it has to offer, something which has been on my bucket list for ages. So my next podcast will be live from there. I hope you enjoy this episode, and a big thanks also to my guests. So sit back and enjoy. Episode 18, Colin Follen.
I'm not going to talk about famous people because that they're no different than you or I, but you'd get a lot of politicians, actors, musicians, the whole spectrum of them. None of them really leave an impression on me anyway, to be honest with you. But I tell you one about, no, I don't know, I suppose he's famous, but I called him a feckin' Egypt anyway. And here's what happened was I was gillying on Ballynahinch for the first week in July for a fella called Don Carroll. He was Carroll's cigarette. I was Don's gilly, and always the first 7 days in July was year on, year off. That was always with Don. And sometimes he'd have a guest with him for the week. And this time he had a guest, a fella from Belgium, an outlet from Belgium. So anyway, 3 days into the fishing, we were fishing Beat 1 in Ballynahinch, and we were fishing on the far bank. And on the near bank, there's all rushes and reeds. And he hooked a fish about 5 or 6 pound. And the fish kept, trying to run into the rushes on him, And I kept saying to myself, I said, don't let him in there. I said, pull him out. And he wasn't stopping the fish at all. And
was it a trout?
The fish went, no, it was a grilled salmon.
Yeah.
The fish went straight into the reeds anyway. I says, you fucking idiot. I says, I told you not to let him into the reeds. And sure, the fly, we lost the fly as well, which kind of really annoyed me because I only had the one of it and it was working very well that week. So I had to snap the line anyway and got it back. So I finished up with him on the Friday, and I knew they were going to dinner in Roundstone, into O'Dowd's restaurant in Roundstone. You were actually in there with me one time.
Yeah, I remember, yeah.
Chowder.
You had a liquid lunch as well, I think.
Liquid lunch. Do you see how I stopped? We had chowder and... So what happened was I drove back to Galway after doing 7 days work with them, and I was emptying out my car, and lo and behold, Yamano's fishing bag was in the boot of my car, the Belgian fella.
Yeah.
Like, you want to see all the hardy reels he had and boxes of fully dressed salmon flies and this, that and the other. Like, this was 50 grand worth of stuff now in his bag, like a big bag. So I said to myself, I can't be responsible for shipping this back to Belgium. Like, I hardly even knew his name and stuff. So
you'd forgot it.
Jumped back in forgot it. Yeah, it was in my car. I jumped back in the car anyway, and I drove back out to Roundstone, which is about an hour and a half from Galway. And I went into the restaurant, and I brought in the bag, and there he was with Don, and there was two other fellas, two kind of big heavies. And I said to myself, right, this makes sense now, because I'd seen them two big fellas, daily for the last week and stuff like that. You know what I mean? They were his bodyguards, right? So Don says to me, you'll stay for dinner and you can stay in my house. That's a brilliant gesture what you're after doing there. And I said, well, thank you very much. I'll enjoy that. And he says, no, Colin, I'll formally introduce you to the King of Belgium. He says, right, Albert, the King of Belgium. And I went, oh, hello. How do I refer to you? I says to him, and he says, well, most people will call me Your Majesty. He says, but I loved it when you called me a feckin' Egypt. So I'm not used to being called a feckin' Egypt, he says. Right, so I says, I've just called the King of Belgium a feckin' Egypt. So that was good.
Episode 159, Rob Redman.
I took my first fish, which was £7 in July.
I remember that. I've seen the picture of it.
Yeah, so that was the first fish I had. So he was a nice fish, multi-spawner, heavily spotted fish. So, by what I mean there by multi-spawning fish, the more spots a sea trout's got on him, the more times he's run the system.
Is that right?
Yeah, well, yeah, that's the.
I know a girl. She got lots of spots, man. You might know her.
Yeah, I probably do.
I didn't know that. More spots.
Yeah, so the more spots a fish has got, the more times he's run it. Yeah, so...
Episode 111, Russ and Gaz. I've seen a few times where I've seen video clips on Facebook of both of you fishing a boat, and one of them was you were chatting to a little yacht coming alongside
you. Those sort of. It seems to happen at Grafham. That does. It's always Grafham. we seem to have a little bit of.
That was close.
Misunderstanding with yachts.
You can see his 5 o'clock shadow.
Yeah. The thing is, that was in the Sheriff final, yeah. And we hadn't done particularly well, but we thought we could still make the prizes. So we got our limit, but we had to get back in. Well, the quickest way is A to B, isn't it? There's no deviation. You're going in a straight line from A to B. So we're going from A to B to get into the jetty as quick as we could. But obviously there was a yacht doing the same line. So we weren't moving, and he wasn't moving, and there was a few words exchanged, and I remember.
Yeah, you asked him to move, didn't you?
Yeah.
Politely.
He wasn't moving. It wasn't for moving, but fun and games.
I know these issues and seem to find us, don't they?
Yeah.
I think adrenaline as well, isn't it, in a competition?
Yeah.
You just need to get to these places.
And,
we were laughing. I hope he had the funny side of it, because we did. I was my phone. I was videoing it as we were going along.
Episode 127, Lucinda Ewan. Have you ever been down to Wales?
I have actually. We spent the last 4 summers with family down in a place. I call it Donegaloo, but it's pronounced Dolgethwai.
Donegaloo, I like that. Yeah.
Donegaloo, that's what we call it. The kids call it Donegaloo, but I have learned it's Dolgethwai.
Up in North Wales, yeah. There's good salmon fishing up there, and sea trout, actually.
Yeah, well, I didn't realise that, and one of the guys I know who's done it.
Tickle me, I don't know. Donegaloo.
Do you know what? I should know better as well, because when I was a child, my dad worked in North Wales, so I spent a lot of time down kind of as if Felly and places like that, and Porthmadder. Yeah, so I did get to know the names of places, but.
So how did it all start for you then? When was the first time you picked up the rod?
I picked up a rod about 6 years ago, believe it or not. My partner fished a little bit, not much. He was just into his spinning and stuff like. He used to go spinning for salmon and stuff like that. He did a little bit of trout fishing at the still waters on a single-handed, but was never into it. And
all right.
He took me out one time and took me to a reservoir and did a bit of bait fishing, with the maggots and split shot weights, getting them down. And I started off, that's how I caught my first fish. And I thought, oh, I like this. And then we kind of progressed onto the river, and then I started catching little brown trout with little meps and things like that. So I was like, oh, this is good. And it was going a little bit further. And there was one day I was fishing, and I was just with a little mep again for trout. And this next thing, I got this great big pull. And it was on the River Tees. I don't know if you know the Tees. If you like your trout and grayling, it's quite popular for it. Not big fish, but you get them in large numbers. And it was this 12-pound River Tees salmon I'd hooked, and it was just really unexpected. And I was playing it on 3-pound line, and I got it in. I was like, what on earth is this? So I was like, come on, we go to the pub so I can tell everybody about what I've caught. Oh, that was it. So,
Episode 12, Dennis Isbister.
In Alaska, that's part of the deal. We fly into a remote area, get dropped off by the float plane. He makes a loop over it in the air and says, you need to walk along here and drop off into this hole, and that's the river, and I'll pick you up in 10 hours. Okay.
Wow.
So it got bear spray on us, and, I don't have a gun, but I should. And, we got charged. It was like a teenager bear, male bear, charging us. He got to about 10 feet, 12 feet, charging, coming at us, and I sprayed the bear spray, and what happened was I got Drew in the face and myself in the face, and
missed the bear.
Stopped. Yeah, missed the bear. It's a pretty funny story, hindsight, but it's a fog. If you've ever sprayed bear spray, which most people haven't, it's a fog. And I mean, if I was going to make bear spray, it'd be like wasp spray. It would spray 20 or 30 feet out there in a stream, like a rocket. This shit was a fog. I was like, what is this crap? Just this big fog came back in our faces, and we were screaming.
God. Was it a black bear,
painful.
Was it?
No, it was a grizzly, yeah.
A grizzly?
Bears.
Wow.
And it was scary at the time. Funny story, hindsight. We were full of bear spray and coughing and dying, and we hit the bear with a couple rocks, and we got a couple, ended up getting like 20 yards to separate.
Episode 2, Alan Rees.
A few times with John Wilshaw, which used to be the editor of Trout and Salmon.
Right, yeah.
He was telling me this one story, and he was fishing a ride-on.
Right.
And something happened, and he got spooked. He thought, I'm not staying here, I'm going to go.
Yeah.
So he got out of the river, and he ran across the field to his car. He couldn't wait to run, right? And as he ran across the field, he hit a cow sleeping. And you can imagine it. You're running across the field, you hit the cow, who jumped more? I don't know, the cow or him?
Yeah.
And this cow got up, a big warm thing you imagine you're falling on. He said it was terrifying. And I can imagine. But, you know, the whole night experience, I suppose the stories you can draw into it, it's a whole romance. It's a different thing altogether.
Yeah.
Just being there, listening to the owls as well and things creeping and around. And
yeah, well, some of the stuff you're talking about, owls, you know, I used to fish a small stretch of river, and there was a nice meadow next to it. And every evening I used to see 2 barn owls working that field, that meadow. And, you know, when they're in flight, they're absolutely silent. And they're only small birds, but they're really good. But, you know, you were talking about cows. I'd staked out this pool on the River Tyvee. Okay, it was above Llandys Hill there, and I knew they were fishing there because I'd been down and I'd looked, you know, I'd climbed a tree and seen these fish going around. And I sat there, maybe 2 hours before dusk, and I thought, right, I'm going to be first on this pool. And as darkness started to come in, there was like sort of a high bank opposite, and I was sat there waiting. And I heard some branches starting to crackle, and I was like, someone's going to come down the bank there and jump in the pool ahead of me. I'm not going to have that. And I waited, and these crackles and branches started getting a bit more and more and more. All of a sudden, there was a massive crack. And I found out later, it was a fence post had broken. There happened to be a cow scratching its back against the fence. But when the fence post broke, the cow came tumbling down through the trees. Right, yeah, down through the trees, off the bank, into the pool. And this cow was swimming in this pool going, moo, moo. Right? I wasn't happy, I tell you.
Episode 121, Peter Boyle.
About my first boat. The first boat I ever purchased. No,
I don't think so.
It was actually the first time I'd ever been arrested.
Arrested?
And
I see what's coming up. yeah.
It was actually myself. I suppose I was brought up close to the river, you know, and close to the River Finn, and that's great felt in it and great everything else in it, you know. But Jesus, me and me mate Paddy. We were friends from play school, like, you know. So there was a storm one day, and the storm had blown a tree down across the river, you know. And this was great. We were 14 at the time. I just turned 14, and I said, "Jesus, Packy, I tell you what we'll do. We'll make a hut, you know, and right beside the river. Fantastic. This was going to be our fishing lodge, you know." So we decided then we needed a pool table. So you know yourself over here in Ireland that you have the. Over here in Ireland, you have the kind of undertaker/pubs, you know what I mean? So a pub generally serves as an undertaker's too. I'd say you would have seen that, and I'm not sure what England is like, but definitely over here, or Wales is like it's. So we decided, right, they were renovating up the local pub in the village that I was from, you know. So I says to Packy, I said, do you know what we'll do? We'll go and we'll take the pool table, you know. Not a word about actually buying it or borrowing it, but we're actually going to steal the pool table. So 3 of us headed up the road and we got into the pub. The pub was open because they're renovating it, but sure, nobody told us the pool table had a slate top on it.
It's heavy, isn't it?
And the 2 of us halfway standing at the corner of the pool table trying to lift it, and could no more lift it than the man in the moon, you know. So next thing we were looking around the same room, and here there's these couple of coffins all hanging up around around the walls of the room, you know. So I says, Paddy, Jesus, there's one with a lid on it, and here us. We kept trying to screw this lid off. Some poor he get lying in the coffin, you know. Past no mark, so we couldn't get the lid off anyway. So we decided, Jesus, wouldn't it be a great idea if we were to lift the coffin and use the coffin as a raft, and we'd float it down the river, down to the hut, you know, because the village was actually built on top of the river almost, you know. Yeah. So this idea was seconded anyway and approved. So the 2 of us got each end of a coffin. We carried it down the stairs, and we were crossing the main road with it. And as we were crossing the main road, the RUC landed in the paddy wagon, and here was these 2 lads walking with this coffin across the road. So of course they stopped, put us into the back of the paddy wagon, left the coffin on the side of the road, and brought us up to the barracks. So Jesus, the policeman, says to me, he says, who will I notify? He says, is there anybody you want to ring? And I says, well, geez, who else want to ring but me mother, you know? I had to ring my mother, and I said, Mom, I'm in trouble. I get arrested by the police for stealing a coffin out of the pub. So, of course, like any Irish mother, first things first, she got on the backbone to the local priest, and the local priest landed up to the barracks. And God love him, he's since deceased, but he turned around to the police and he told the police that he had asked us to move the coffin for him. Oh my God! So I tell you, my ass got a queer timbering when I got home. By I tell you, it was raw for days after.
Jeez.
But it was the talk of the county. This coffin left beside the road, and nobody in it, and no lid on it. And stop! No, that was the innocent back then. I suppose that was my first foray with a boat. I suppose.
Episode 14: The story of my £19 Ferox.
So I jumped in the boat, I motored off, and go round towards Inchigill again. By now, there was big, not so much the rollers, it was gustiness, And I thought, is this going to stop? About 4 mile out in the lake. And the adrenaline's good, mate, but all of a sudden, it starts getting worse. I'm not sure what the strength of the wind was. It was something like a storm force 10, and I mean, it was big wind. And at this point then, the rods were slapping the waves, and I just lost it. I screamed at the sky, telling it to stop blowing. And the weird thing was, it started to stop. Coincidence or what? Or the gods must have thought, I'll give this guy a break now. He's been here for some time, and the wind dropped. Only a little, but it was a lovely soft wind then. You hear it very often in Ireland. There's a soft wind. There's no scurrying the gusts on the water. It's just nice, slow. People who have experienced it, you'll know what I mean. There's a lovely roll on the water, and it's so comfortable. And the sky went dark, really dark, and a deep grey colour came onto the water. It's almost like a mercuryness to it. There's times I've been there, and when you know that happens, you've just got to switch on, put everything into it. Because there are times, it's almost like a sixth sense. When the light and the wind comes together, a certain time, you know things are going to happen. And the feeling, the electricity is in the air. I'm just starting to row in and row in with the wind. Next thing, it happens. The left rod just arced round and screamed. And then the first time I see the fish, he came towards the boat, did the usual trick, dived underneath. This time he stayed in front of the boat. The wind just drops, a gentle wave. At this point, he was about literally 20 foot away. And this is the first time I seen him. He leapt out and back in like a dolphin, in slow motion, as if to take a look at who I was. And he went down deep and deep and deep and deep. The line was going zit, 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 down, down, down. And then, as if to say, I'm going to have one more run at this. It was round then, to the back of the boat, screamed off again, the third time. Again, must have been about 60 yards, a good way, And then for the first time, just come up to the surface. I put my net in, and then as soon as I had the fish in the net, the sky just emptied with hailstones. It was unreal. I've never experienced it up to then, and I've never experienced it since. It was lashing down with like marble-sized hail. So I quickly lifted the fish over the gunwales into the boat, and it was that point I thought, geez, that's some fish. I looked at the bottom of the boat, and it was white, and it looked like snow. It was just covered in ice. And coming out of the ice then was this pristine-looking, beautiful ferox. And I couldn't have been happier. I just looked up to the sky, and the hail was hurting me at this stage. And I just roared from the bottom of my feet the release of all the weeks and the years previous looking for a specimen and having lost them along the way. And unless you experienced it, something you want to achieve and you've actually done it, you've got to pinch yourself. And after I rode, the hail stopped. First thing I did then, slip him in the sling. It was time to use my brand new Rapala scales. Lifted the fish up. The scales went 19.5 pounds. And to this day, it's the second biggest ferox I've had. I've had many teens since. And of course, the record, which actually is another story when keeping for me.
Episode 80, Mark Vickery, Paper Mill.
Have you caught some people and banned people?
Oh, yeah. I think that's what people don't like about me. I do have my heart on my sleeve, and if I don't like somebody, they go on, that's that. I seen somebody catching once, and they were put in, I said, what are you using there on there now? And I crept up behind and I said, what are you doing over there now? Oh, my own devices, he said. I made missing my own devices. I said, what are you got then? And what he'd done, he was making balls of power bait and putting it in a lady's stocking, a little bit of it, and I putting it through the stocking onto the buzzer.
Like a suspended buzzer,
yeah.
but
and that's what he was doing. So away, go, don't come back here. So yeah, you always get, there's been numerous issues, and there'll always be somebody who will cheat. That's part and parcel of it, unfortunately.
You will, won't it?
Yeah, always will carry it.
There was, I used to work part-time once for a couple of years down in Dufferin Springs when it was a trout lake.
Yeah.
And there was a big complex of lakes, so you couldn't see from the lodge what was going on in the bottom lake. So you had monitors, so I was there in the office looking at, and I could see this guy, he wasn't casting as such, almost roll casting. And I thought, he's up to something. And then he caught one, I thought, I'm going to creep up, like we said, up towards him now, right? And you don't confrontation.
No.
So, and this guy, he looked like a bad Vinnie Jones character, right? And I thought, right, I got to confront him. So I went up to him now, right? And all of a sudden, I appeared about 10 yards away, and he could see.
Panic.
He didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
And then he just carried on fishing. I walked up to him and said, any good? And he said, yeah, I've had one. I said, yeah, I've seen you have one. I said, it's been hard last couple of weeks. Can I see what you're using? And he could tell, it's only just a nymph, he said. I said, let's look at it. Anyway, he lifted it up now. It's a big ball of bright fluorescent pink. What's that stuff?
Power
bait.
Yeah. And
I said, you realise you can't use this? I said. And do you know what? I was expecting you because you can have a bit of a confrontation, yeah. Do you know what? He started crying.
No way.
He started crying. Bottom lip was going. He said, I'm having a bad time. He said, I can't catch anything. And do you know what? Yes, I was stumped then. I really didn't know what to do. I was expecting a bit of aggro.
Yeah.
And then I said, look, I was a bit soft then. I said, look, give me the tub. You give me the tub, a little jar.
Yeah.
And I took it. And I kind of felt sorry for him. Because it was more than that. He was upset. His head was shed up or something.
Yeah, you get it.
So
but
he fished. I said, carry on. I said, but, the flies. At the end of the couple of hours then, he came up. He didn't have no more. And I gave him the tub back and he went.
Yeah, I remember a similar thing. I remember I was watching father and his kids. And father had gone, left them for a second or two. I went over. I said, what are you catching on the kids? Oh, magic potion, my daddy said. Oh, is it? Because I was standing down one end and I could see all this glitter stuff on the surface of the water flashing me. I knew straight away what it was. And I went, that's what the kid said. Oh, it's a magic potion, he said. I said, where is it then? And they showed it to me. Oh. And his father's over here. So I had him then and away he went. I've never seen him since. But yeah, I said, bloody hell, I got the kids, so why do it?
Episode 101, Will Millard.
Ken brews all his own booze, and he drinks a lot and expects you to drink a lot whilst you're there. And I was trying to record this piece with him about his wines and his brew, and I'd written this whole piece about birch sap wine, which is one of his favourites. And I mentioned I'd never tried it, and his eyes lit up, and he was like, birch sap wine, oh, beautiful, nectar from heaven. Jumps over to his huge booze collection and picks up this bottle off the ground, hands it over to me, and I had to use a pair of pliers, Ceri, to get the cork out of this bottle.
Never.
I was looking at it, I was like, oh, it looks weird. It was kind of like orange and kind of glowing a little bit. It wasn't what I'd sort of seen birch sap look like, but I put some in my glass and tried it, and immediately like, my throat was just on fire. I was like, oh, it tastes rough, man. It didn't taste, it tastes fruity, but not how I'd imagined birch sap to be. But I was like, oh, this must be just what it is, you know?
Yeah.
And then he said, oh, come on, give me a swig. And he took a swig and he went, nah! He's like, what the hell is this? He's like, my throat's on fire. And obviously, I was then like, oh my God, what has he done? And he looks at the bottom and suddenly his whole face is just contorted with fear. And he turns to me and he said, this bottle was dropped off by some lone hiker that came through and he just left it here. I never ever meant to drink this. And he said, look at it. And then we looked at it under the light of the fire because he's got no electricity. It had all these like blobs floating in it. It looked absolutely disgusting. And then that was it.
No.
He was like, Will, we're going to die. We're going to die. He's poisoned us. It's probably got anthrax in it. And then he started telling me, he was like, you know, serum from foxgloves, you can put that in drink and it disguises it completely. We'll have organ failure in 2 days. I was like, oh, 10 months.
The thing is, as well, when you're in that environment, I guess you think, shit, this is what's happening.
I did. I said, what are we going to do? I was like, I can't. There's no way of, you know, it's 10 miles to walk to the nearest road, let alone get an ambulance.
Yeah.
So I'm then shoving my fingers down my throat, trying to vomit this stuff up. Ken turns around to me. Ken turns around to me and he's like, my bowels have gone. He runs outside, drops his tech. After an hour, nothing's happened, and I said, Ken, I think we might have panicked.
Episode 46, Paul Slaney.
You were saying as well, you were saying about all these like the hippos and the crocs. You had a close escape falling off a boat in...
Yeah, you want to ask my wife now when we finish this. Yeah, we went... I went on a bone fishing trip, and my wife came with me. One of the only times she ever come fishing with me. And anyway, we'd done some bone fishing. It was the end of the day, and we were just messing about, so we thought we'd try some sharks, you know, shark fishing. So we caught a barracuda, cut it up to chum the sharks in. That's what we did. So now we're on a 19-foot skiff. There's me, my wife, and the guide, Colin. Little guy. He's only about, he was less than 5 foot tall, stocky, powerful boy, but, he wasn't the biggest lad you've ever met. So by now the boat is surrounded by sharks, so they're like white tips. Not huge, but big enough, And the way of fishing for them was to 10-0 hook on a heavy spinning rod with a chunk of barracuda on it, and literally take the bail arm off, choose which shark you wanted to catch, really, and throw, the lump of bait at it like a cricket ball, and then put the bail arm on and hope he took it.
Which you literally throw one cast in.
Literally, you couldn't, because it's such a big lump of stuff, Yeah. Just throw it at it. Anyway, so I did this shark just turned and took it. Tightened onto it and, got this shark on the end, and the rod's bending, and I was stood on the casting deck of a bonefish skiff. And I took one step backwards to tighten into the fish, and there was no deck left. I just went straight in the water.
Jeez, that would have been a great video clip.
Oh, Christ, man! I can remember I can remember going in, and bear in mind this little boat is literally surrounded by him, and it was shallow. I felt my feet hit the bottom, so it was maybe a little bit deeper than me. I remember thinking, this is it, and pushed back up. And as I pushed back up, my head came out the water. Colin was there. Grabbed me by the shoulders and literally manhandled me back on the boat. I swear my fags were still dry. I was in and out so fast, And my wife was like, it was one of them, time to go home sort of thing.
Episode 144, Cyril Fox.
You see them in bathing costumes in the water, and you pull them out of the river, and I said, oh, we're only bathing. I said, okay, then come out. I said, can I smell your hands? Right? Smell. You can smell fish on it, okay?
Yeah.
And then I said, we pull the trunks down, and there you'll have a snare inside the trunks.
No.
Yeah. I went up on top of it one day, and I thought I seen a plastic bath up there. You converted it into a little boat, a plastic bath now. So
really?
light. Yeah, I brought it down here. What do you mean? Everybody will jump inside and take a photograph with it? Yeah. It's good, yeah. I knew the guy who did it. I knew the local guy was. There was so much poaching here when I started here. I had a dog, but obviously he was a Labrador, but he was a good dog. One dog I good. Say now I'm walking down the field with my dog, right? You Bobby, and his tail be up in the air, wagging away. But once I see his tail go between his back legs, I knew there was somebody about.
Oh, was it?
Yeah. And I remember one Sunday, I was walking down there all the way down with my dog, and then 100 yards before I came to his catch, his tail went between his legs. I knew. So I pulled my bitting. I carried a 12-bore poaching gun. Fold it up and you can put it in a barber coat. You get me?
Really?
Oh yeah. I bought a barber. You had to protect yourself. You mean? Get him a bit rough.
You'd fire it just to frighten them, would you?
Oh well, I'd fire over their heads. Okay,
Yeah.
you mean? I caught a bloke by here foul looking, 2 of them, and he said to me, if I come across, he said, you and the fucking dog will be in the river, he said. And I said, come over, mate, I said, and I fired my gun in the air. Fucking hell. Yeah?
Episode 140, Ceri Bromwell.
I've heard about your singing and your Tarzan calls.
Oh yeah, Tarzan. Yeah, I done that on the River Ewer. All the boys were practicing, and we were up on his mountain. And Kibble said, "Do Tarzan." I done Tarzan, and there was a guy, one of the English guys, sitting on a bank, just staring at me, thinking, "That guy's not square." Kibble was loud.
Give us a blast now.
What's that out?
Tarzan.
Oh! I can do it really loud, like
talent's wasted. We'll have to have as a new intro for my podcast.
Yeah, I'll do that. It's no problem at all. Oh, it's brilliant. We had such a laugh doing that. Brilliant.
We weren't expecting it. Was it a competition? Was it?
Yeah, we were in the international. I think it's when we won gold. I think it was. Yeah, we picked
up in Scotland.
No, on the Ewer in Yorkshire.
Oh right.
Big upset.
But so many goals now.
We've had a few. Bloody hell. Yeah, quite a few. I don't know how many you had actually.
So you did the call after you'd won?
No, we were doing it while we were practicing walking on the beach. So everyone was about that. So I found this big log in a tree, and Kibble's looked at me and said, 2000. You could hear it go down the valley.
Yeah, man.
That was a good laugh.
Episode 7, David Miller.
I see a snorkel coming up into the pool.
I do for obvious reasons avoid going at night. Definitely. I have upset over the years. I'm literally just 1 or 2 fishermen when they've turned up to fish a pool and they've seen me sort of
coming out.
Yeah. In one pool on the Cothley. What I do to relax after a dive sometimes, like you're chasing shadows really. The fish are here and then they're gone, and it's hard work. You're swimming upriver. So we've had a session photographing, and also just because it's what I love to do. Late in the season one year on the Cothy, it was a deep pool, about 10 feet deep, and I had a good dive, seen some fish. So I lay on my back on the bottom of the pool. You can just lie with your scuba gear on, watch the surface and watch the leaves coming down.
Wow.
And it is like, wow, this is amazing. So, but some guy, I couldn't see him, had arrived to fish the pool. and he sees me and he thinks I'm stuck. And he said, because I don't know how many minutes I was lying there, not moving, and the Cothy, especially when I dive, I choose it when it's really clear. And so he could see virtually every detail on me, lying on the back, not moving. And when I finally decided, he said I was just about to phone the emergency services. So, thanks.
Episode 83, Jerry Murphy.
There was an old guy next door, Jimmy Brown. The bay there is called after him, the Browns Bay, but he was gilly for Healy's Hotel. Yeah. And he had only one boat, and the hotel had one boat. But then an odd man would ask him, have you another boat? No. And then, do you stop here? Because we're right beside the lake. They stop here for, do you know where we get a boat? Do you know where we get a boat? And my father just said, I'm going to find out where to get a boat. So he bought a brand new wooden clinker boat made in Bannerrobe by Burke Builders. That still exists. And the boat was delivered here, brand new, in around early 70s, late 60s, 68, 69, 70. It was delivered here for £90. No, sorry, £91. £90 for the boat and £1 to deliver from Bannerrobe. I remember I was only probably 12, 14, but I'm the eldest in the family.
Yeah.
But there was a boat on a trailer, and this guy arrived for it, and he had no tow bearer, or probably a hired out car or something, but I was determined to get it to the lake because I was going to get a couple of quid for it.
Yeah.
£2 or something. So I had a bicycle, and the trailer, my father and Tom Healy made the trailer, but they had it in a way that was balanced. So it was easily, you could manoeuvre. So it was a bit far over the road to walk with it. There was no jockey wheel, so I tied it to the saddle of the bike, and I walked over the road, and my two brothers pushed it. But that time you could do it because there wasn't much traffic. That was in the 70s, in the mid 70s. And I brought it over the lake and put it out, and I remember getting £2 or 50 pence or something like that for doing it. A wooden boat, yeah. Though a lot heavier, but it was the way the trailer was made, it was balanced on it, you know. And the trailer was made out of an old mini minor subframe with the mini minor. You take the body off it and use the subframe, and got some guy to weld it up. But then we had my father had always a big old Hillman car, a big old Hillman Manx with a tow bar on it. But when the shoreline had flooded in the back end of the year, when the boats would start coming up, again my father was always working, so.
Episode 123, John Graham. Well, there's one question I ask now. Every podcast I do, there's one question I ask everyone.
Go on, boy.
Where would you want to be to make your last cast?
Oh, that's a hard question to answer, that is. That's a hard question to answer. To make my last cast, I can think of 1,000 places. I can think of 1,000 places I've been.
Any pools?
Yes, but then a lot of them are no longer there. The river has changed out of recognition. I got such memories. There's nothing like sea trout to give you lasting memories.
Yeah.
It does. It gives you lasting memories. You know, the night, a night with cloud and the moon sailing through the cloud like it's like a galleon. A gypsy night, I call it. And strong wind blowing upstream. Them nights, the big sea trout used to be on the run. And you'd be fishing and casting against the elements, whacking it into the wind, you know what I mean? And when they used to take it with vengeance. Yeah, that's the sort of dynamic fishing I remember. Fantastic.
So where would you like to go and fish?
I can't answer that because there's so many. I've been to so many pieces of beautiful water.
Well, it's been a pleasure to have come here and to share this knowledge you've got.
I hope it's worth it for you, boy.
I've absolutely loved it, and I can see now why so many people have told me over the last 12 months, you need to speak to John Graham, and I'm really glad I did, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Ceri.
If you've enjoyed this podcast and want to listen to more, please consider becoming a patron. We will get weekly podcasts and access to over 170 episodes, behind the scenes photography to go with each episode, plus other exclusive content and prizes. To become a Patreon, visit patreon.com/casting with Ceri Jones, or you can find the link on my website, castingwithcerijones.com. That's all for now. Tight lines
and may they always be up in the wave.